even after the end of World War II, or was it Nazis in collaboration with aliens? We don't know. Of course, we don't know because there has been an embargo on truthful UFO information ever since the late 40s and early 50s, particularly in the United States, where we now have the government documents clearly stating that they were going to institute a policy of denial and ridicule. In other words, you didn't see anything, and if you persist on saying you did, then you must be mentally unbalanced.
Yeah, did you hear about the recent France actually opened up their archives, I guess, of UFO witness reports?
Yes, and this is a very hopeful activity. I think we can see that this secrecy over UFOs is beginning to crack wide open. Another thing, I don't know if you're aware of this, but just a few weeks ago on CNN over here, the former governor of Arizona, Fife Symington, was on CNN and describing the thing that flew over Phoenix in the summer of 1997, in March, rather, 1997. And he said, yes, it was huge. It was an alien spaceship. It was amazing. And, of course, he was immediately asked, then why did you hold a press conference where you brought out a guy in an alien suit and made fun of the whole thing? And he said, well, I didn't want public panic. So now we get these stories like the Phoenix flyover, which they held a news conference, and the governor of Arizona said, nothing there, folks, ha, ha, ha. And now he's on the public record and telling a national CNN audience that, no, he saw it himself, and it was huge, and it was an alien spaceship. So I think we can see that the secrecy is beginning to come apart. But this concerns me, too, because back to what Werner von Braun said, which was that when the communist threat didn't work and the terrorist threat doesn't work, the next threat is going to be the threat from space. Okay? Now, think about it. How are you going to be able to sell the public on the idea of a threat from space if you've already conditioned them for 50 or 60 years that there is nobody out in space?
Exactly.
So I think what we're seeing here is a counter-conditioning program. Yes, folks, I think they're really here, and they're really real, and they're really out there. And then when they decide to play their trump card, it'll be, holy cow, there really are aliens, and they're coming to eat you, so you have to give us the last of your individual liberties so we can protect you.
Oh, indeed. So they are again, they're playing around with us, and the information are disposed to us in order to, how this will serve their own agenda, basically.
Exactly.
I mean, we have a few, I think it was a minister out of Canada who came out recently, said that, he saw, I don't know if he saw UFOs or had access to information that verified this, but we could see these kind of, things that you talk about actually popping up all over the, horizon now. And
that's right. And that was the former defense secretary of Canada. And let me tell you another thing he said that I think we should pay attention to. He said that the solution to solving the crisis of global warming would probably be found in the use of ET technology. He said that's another reason we have to end this secrecy so that we can start putting that science and technology out to the universities and to the laboratories and have people start working on this technology so that perhaps we could solve some of our more pressing problems here on this planet.
Yeah, indeed.
And I concur.
Did you get a chance to see the Disclosure Project by Stephen Greer?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's kind of interesting to note that they had a huge press conference at the National Press Club. They said they had about 400 U.S. government whistleblowers who were ready to come forward and tell about their personal knowledge of aliens and their technology. And at the press conference, they had about 25 who stood up and said, I'm so-and-so, and I know this and I know that. And this news conference was well attended by the national media, and there were TV cameras there and radio recorders and everything else. And yet nothing much was actually put in the news media about that news conference until after a few months there started to be some articles cropping up in magazines and op-ed pieces and things like that. And what's really fascinating to me was that news conference was held in June of 2001. Just 3 months later, we had 9/11, and of course, all that got lost. That just went away.
That's right, because that was kind of a point I wanted to bring up, that when I remember this, when this was hot, so to speak, there was kind of a very positive sense in the air, so to speak, in regards to where this might be going, and this is huge and so forth. But since that point, I mean, it just totally disappeared, and I don't know what goes on.
But after 9/11, we just forgot all about that because we were too concerned with the war on terror.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. So we go back to that
concept, because terror is a strategy. It's not an entity. It's not a person. It's not a group. So we've declared war on a concept.
Sure.
It'd be kind of like after Pearl Harbor, we declared war on naval aviation.
Yeah. I did want to ask you also in regards to, because this it's always kind of easy to gloss over it, I guess, because it's so fairly known now, but this is the issue about the grays, basically. This is the most well-known image, I guess, that we have in our popular culture, at least, of what an alien is and what it looks like and so forth. What is your take on the gray?
Well, if you've actually studied the literature at any depth, and Heinrich, I'm sure you have, you realize that there are descriptions of several different races.
Indeed.
Not just the small grays. We've got the small grays, we've got the taller grays, we've got the tall whites, we've got the Nordic-looking people, we've got the grasshopper-looking people, we've got the reptilian-looking people. There's just, so my thought is, and to the best of my knowledge, when you say, well, are there little small grays, or are they reptilians, or are they Nordics, or are they the tall whites? And my answer is yes. After all, the universe is a immense place.
Indeed.
And I think it's the height of arrogance to think that we are the only ones on this small planet that's way out here on the edge of the boondocks, if you will, of the Milky Way galaxy, which is just one of millions of other galaxies, and we're the only ones around.
Sure.
I mean, that's ridiculous. In fact, no matter how you want to look at it, do people really believe that if God created the universe, that he created all these other worlds and planets and galaxies just so we'd have something to look at when we look up in the sky at night?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty arrogant and chauvinistic viewpoint.
Indeed. And I mean, there are, as recently as today, actually, news reports coming out that water is now detected on distant planets and so forth.
Sure.
So, I mean, this is coming to light slowly
but again,
surely.
This is part of the conditioning process. Heinrich, when I was going to school, in grade school, as a young kid in the 50s, we were told the moon was a dead world, there's nothing there. We were told that Mars and Jupiter, Neptune, Venus, the rest of the planets, there just really wasn't anything there, and that no human-type life could survive there. And yet, over the years, we've slowly but surely, the information has trickled out that, well, yeah, they did find water on the moon, okay? And yes, there's been lights seen moving on the moon.
Yeah.
And yes, Mars does have some sort of atmosphere, and in fact, the polar caps indicate the presence of water. And so, in other words, everything we were taught is basically wrong.
Yeah. And of course, we talked about this, last time you were on, but again, this is always a fascinating area to touch upon, because I've been pondering upon this fact that what we saw, on the TV, so to speak, the TV images that we got back from the moon, that this actually wasn't, the real thing that we saw. This was, done in a studio, whatever. There's a number.
Well, there's lots of argument there.
There is.
I'm not prepared at this point to come down firmly on one side or the other, other than to say very emphatically that there are a number of unanswered questions, inconsistencies, just all kinds of problems with the official story that we've been told about the man's moon landing.
Yeah.
None the least of which, again, I guess I've lived long enough, I remember before we landed on the moon, and the talk was is that we were going to colonize the moon, and we were going to mine the moon for resources and minerals and stuff, and that would then pay for the space program.
Yeah.
Well, we were told we went to the moon,
Yeah.
but then we never went back.
Nothing since. No.
And none of that happened, and why not?
It's incredible. I mean, what's going on? And I mean, in a sense, we are being told, every 10 years or so, or every 5 years, we are told that, in 10 or 15 years we will go back or whatever. But
but we haven't.
No, exactly. Yeah.
What I'm really intrigued with right now is this Russian space program, where they are basically taking passengers and tourists up into space. There's one billionaire who I think he's still on the space station right now, and they've announced that Bill Gates wants to go.
Yeah, indeed.
Pay his way into space.
Sure.
So I'm wondering what's going to happen in the near future when these people who are not military officers and under military discipline and control, and who are not scientists, who can be threatened with cutoff of funds and grants.
Sure.
What are they going to do when they get up in space and come back and start telling people, wow, we saw this stuff zinging around and people flying around up there, and we saw this activity on the moon? It's going to be an exciting time.
Indeed. I mean, and people like, Richard Branson from the Virgin Corporation, he's building his own, he's actually going together with the Swedish government, I think, to build.
Right, and that's quite exciting. But see, this raises a question in my mind too.
Mm-hmm.
We are told that NASA didn't go back to the moon and hasn't been doing anything other than just these close orbit space shuttle missions and an occasional deep space probe.
Sure.
Because they don't have the money. Okay? It's just too expensive.
Yeah.
And so now we have all these private companies in other countries. Japan's another one. There's a huge European space agency, and of course the Russians are working on it.
Yeah.
You would think that NASA would say, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Here, let us share our information with you. Let us partner up with you and do all these space things. But instead, what we see is NASA is dragging its feet. They don't want them to go out there.
No.
My question is, why not? What are they afraid that they're going to see?
Sure, exactly. I mean, Russia and China are teaming up, planning to go to Mars, and another article actually today again, but stating that Russia, are eyeing on the moon to actually outsource this for industrial purposes and so forth. I mean, will America
back to the same old plan that the U.S. had back in the 50s?
Exactly. That was my kind of way into this. I mean, the fear, I guess, is that America will fall behind, and then we have another space race, I guess, on our hands.
Well, like I said, if our problem is we just don't have the money to do it, then why aren't we supportive of others who are willing to try it?
Yeah.
But we're not. In fact, we're throwing all kinds of stumbling blocks trying to prevent them from getting into space.
In regards to Mars, I mean, there are stories there too, of course, bases or traces of ancient civilizations, stuff like this. This would mean tremendous, implications if this was actually true for our sake. Exactly.
And by the way, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or your listeners, but Richard Hoagland and a lot of others have claimed that the pyramids near the famous space on Mars in the Cydonia region, they are in the same configuration as the pyramids on the Giza Plateau, and both of those are in the same configuration as what they claim they have found a series of pyramids on the moon, which of course leads to the idea that if these are artificial structures, then whoever built them was a space-faring people that were able to travel to the moon and to Mars and to the Earth.
Sure. Opens up a can of worms.
Yeah, that opens up another whole can of worms, which is, who are we and where do we come from?
Indeed.
And again, we've been taught certain things that that continue to crumble in the light of recent discoveries and knowledge.
But again, this is an exciting